Cold rain pelted the alley as two ragged children stared at the trembling stranger. "Take it," Mira insisted, pressing something precious into her hands. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this for me?" Mira just whispered, "Sometimes you have to be kind, even when it hurts." No one could guess how those words would change everything. Before we get started with this story, let us know where you're tuning in from. We love hearing your thoughts and seeing where everyone's watching. In the cramped alleyways of Old Camden, the world always seemed gray, like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. Buildings leaned as if tired of holding themselves up, and the scent of fresh bread was a memory that came and went, like a whisper from a kinder time. For Jamie, age 4, and his sister Mira, age 6, the word hungry had settled into their bones so deep that it became a kind of music, the rumble in their bellies timing out the steps of their days. Their mother, who'd gone to find work in the factories a week ago, hadn't returned. "I'll bring home something sweet," she promised, kissing their foreheads, her smile as thin as the hem of her dress. Days passed. The door to their little room never opened. The old landlady downstairs, a grumpy sort with a soft spot she hid beneath layers of complaints, slipped them crusts now and then, but mostly, the kids scavenged and survived on hope. On the morning when everything began, Mira found a piece of bread tucked away in the back of their cupboard. Hard as a rock, but still edible, it was the last loaf, their last connection to the promise of another day. She shared it with Jamie, breaking it carefully, the way their mother had shown her, blessing it with a silent prayer. They sat on the stoop, chewing slowly, making each bite last. Across the street, people hurried past, coats pulled tight, eyes on the puddled ground. No one seemed to see the two children, their small feet dangling above a puddle, toes caked in city dust. As the sky began to drizzle, a woman rounded the corner, clutching her stomach. Her steps faltered, as if she was carrying the weight of 1,000 worries. Her face was unfamiliar, dark hair plastered to her cheeks, eyes big and haunted. She moved with the slow, careful pace of someone protecting more than herself. She paused, swaying right in front of the children. Mira's first instinct was to tuck the bread behind her, a habit she picked up from days of scarcity. But the woman collapsed onto the stoop, breathing hard. Her hand went to her swollen belly, her lips cracked and dry. "Are you okay?" Janie asked, voice barely above a whisper. He was so small, his shoes 2 sizes too big, a wild mop of curls falling over his eyes. The woman shook her head, trying to sit up. "Just need to rest. For a minute." She looked so much like their mother, scared and tired, but trying so hard. Mira's heart squeezed. Without thinking, she held out the last bit of bread. "Here, you can have this. It's all we got, but you look like you need it more." The woman hesitated, eyes wide with disbelief, but hunger was a strong master. She took the bread, hands trembling, and ate with a kind of desperate gratitude. When she finished, she looked at the children, tears in her eyes. Thank you, angels." She tried to stand, faltered, and Mira helped steady her. "We live here," Jamie said, "but Mama's not home. We can't help much, but you can rest inside if you want." The woman nodded, wiping her eyes. "You're both very brave." Mira shrugged, trying to seem older. "Sometimes you just gotta be nice, even when it hurts." As the rain came down harder, the 3 of them slipped inside the cramped room, sharing its cold and hope. The last loaf was gone, their bellies still empty, but their hearts felt strangely full. None of them knew it yet, but small kindness, given in the shadows of the city, had just sent ripples out into a world waiting to change. The small room smelled of wet shoes and old dreams. The window was cracked, and rain dripped onto the ledge, forming a tiny river that wound through dust bunnies and Jamie's mismatched socks. Mira found a faded blanket and draped it over the shivering woman, whose name, they learned, was Anna. Anna's eyes lingered on the children's faces, a mix of worry, fierce loyalty, and the unspoken ache of missing someone. She settled against the wall, hands curled around her belly, and her breaths came a little steadier. Even so, she seemed ready to bolt at any moment, as if kindness was a trick and shelter a trap. The city taught that lesson well. Mira, trying to fill the silence, offered her story in pieces. She told Anna about their mother, how she always found a way to make them laugh, even when cupboards were empty, and how she could turn any patch of sunlight into a treasure hunt. She described Jamie's wild ideas, building a boat out of milk crates, fighting pirates in the puddles, pretending the cat next door was a tiger guarding their castle. Anna smiled, and for a moment, the lines of worry eased from her face. "You two are stronger than you know," she said softly. Jamie, emboldened by her gentle tone, sat beside Anna and poked her belly, curiosity shining in his eyes. "Is there a baby in there?" Anna laughed, a sound so pure it surprised them all. "Yes, there is. She's almost ready to come out. I hope she's brave, like you two." Jamie grinned. "She can be our friend. We'll teach her how to catch rain in a cup." Mira's stomach growled, and embarrassment flushed her cheeks. Anna heard it, of course. "You shared your bread with me," she said, voice shaky. "I don't have much, but—" She rummaged in the faded satchel slung over her shoulder and pulled out an apple bruised but whole. She broke it in half, offering a piece to each child. For a moment, Mira hesitated. They hadn't had fruit in weeks. But the thought of taking from someone who had even less than them twisted her gut. "You need it more. For the baby," she whispered. Anna pressed the apple into her hand, insistent. "You gave me your last bread. Please." So Mira took the piece, and Jamie followed suit, munching hungrily. The simple sweetness lit up their faces. Later, thunder rumbled outside, and Anna told stories of where she'd come from, a small town far from the city, where fields rolled green in spring and her husband used to sing to her belly every night. But war and trouble chased them away. Her husband never made it out. "I'm trying to get somewhere safer," Anna said, her eyes shining with tears. "But I got lost. I'm so tired. I didn't think anyone would help me." Mira put a small hand on Anna's. "You helped us too with the apple. Maybe we all help each other." As darkness fell, Mira and Jamie snuggled under the threadbare blanket beside Anna, who drifted into uneasy sleep. The children listened to the storm, imagining their mother out there somewhere, pushing through the rain to come back home. They promised themselves they'd hold on for one more night together. Hours later, a loud bang jolted them awake. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. For a split second, fear gripped them. Had someone come to throw them out? But it was only old Mrs. Tilly, the landlady, puffing and red-faced. She froze in the doorway, seeing the stranger. "Who's this, then?" she barked. Mira squared her shoulders, voice trembling but clear. "She's our friend. She needed help." Mrs. Tilly eyed Anna's belly, her tough facade slipping. "Well, looks like we got more mouths to feed tonight. Best make some tea, then." The storm raged outside, but inside, a tiny flame of hope was lit. 3 unlikely souls, bound by small kindnesses, began to believe, just a little, that tomorrow might hold something better. The next morning, the city seemed softer after the storm. Sunlight crept across the peeling wallpaper, and the puddles outside shone like scattered coins. Mira woke to the muffled sound of Mrs. Tilly in the kitchen downstairs, rattling pots, muttering about ungrateful waifs, while the smell of weak tea floated up to the landing. Anna slept fitfully, one hand protectively on her belly, her brow beaded with sweat. Jamie sat cross-legged beside her, poking a finger at the window fog and drawing shapes: cats, boats, hearts. As Mira pulled on her old jumper, she noticed Anna's breathing had changed, sharp and shallow. "Anna," she whispered. Anna managed a weak smile but grimaced through a spasm. Downstairs, Mrs. Tilly had made a watery porridge. She scooped a bowl for each child, set a mug for Anna, and eyed the children with a practiced squint. "She doesn't look well," the old woman murmured. "Pregnant women need more than bread and apples. Someone should fetch help." Mira's stomach twisted. To leave Anna now, when she looked so pale, seemed wrong, but the nearest clinic was a good walk away, and Janie was too small for such a trip. Still, it was their only chance. Mira grabbed her threadbare coat. "I'll go," she said quietly, meeting Mrs. Tilly's gaze. "Watch Jamie?" The landlady grunted but nodded. "Be careful, child." Mira stepped into the street. She was small for 6, and the city was vast. Each step felt heavy, her hunger and worry wrestling inside her, but she walked on determined. As she hurried along, she saw the city in a new light. Shopkeepers sweeping their stoops, a postman whistling, children in press uniforms on their way to school. For a moment, she wondered what it would be like to belong somewhere, to have enough to eat, to feel safe. The clinic was 2 long blocks away. Mira wove through crowds, clutching the memory of Anna's scared eyes. When she reached the old brick building, she burst inside breathless. A nurse with kind eyes listened as Mira explained. "She's having a baby, I think. She's really tired. Please, can you help?" The nurse gathered her bag and hurried back with Mira, her steps sure and brisk. Mira's relief was so strong she nearly cried. Back at the apartment, Anna's labor had grown more intense. Mrs. Tilly tried to soothe her, but fear flickered in her eyes too. Jamie held Anna's hand and whispered stories about brave tigers and invisible pirate ships. The nurse took charge at once, gentle but firm, turning the tiny room into a place of hope. She reassured Anna, comforted the children, and even cajoled Mrs. Tilly into boiling water. The hours dragged. The nurse sent Jamie and Mira into the hall, where they sat with Mrs. Tilly, clutching each other's hands. Mira's thoughts twisted with worry about Anna, the baby, their mother, and what would happen next. Finally, after what seemed like forever, a small wailing cry pierced the silence. The nurse emerged, smiling tiredly. "A little girl. She's strong, like you two." Anna, tears streaming down her face, beckoned the children in. She was pale, but her smile was brighter than any they'd seen. "Meet your new friend," she whispered, cradling the tiny bundle. "She's here because you were brave, because you cared." Mrs. Tilly sniffed, wiping her eyes. "Well, not every day you see a miracle in Camden." Mira gazed at the newborn, heart swelling with love and hope. She realized with quiet certainty that helping Anna had been the right thing, even if it meant going hungry, even if it meant risking everything. The world outside still felt big and uncertain, but inside the little apartment, in the glow of the newborn's first morning, something had changed forever. Ask ChatGPT. News of the baby's birth spread quickly through the old Camden building. For a place so accustomed to struggle, the arrival of a new life was like a shaft of sunlight through storm clouds, unexpected, bright, and impossible to ignore. Mrs. Tilly, who once grumbled about every spare crumb, became the proudest bearer of gossip, retelling the tale of the miracle baby, born right upstairs, thanks to those two tiny angels. Anna, still weak but recovering, clung to her baby girl and the warmth of her new makeshift family. She named the baby Hope, for what the children had given her. Every time she looked at Mira and Jamie, her gratitude was as boundless as her exhaustion. Word reached the tenants, and soon small acts of kindness began to bloom. Mrs. Patel from downstairs, who sold samosas on the corner, sent up a parcel of warm food. The laundry woman across the hall offered a basket of hand-me-down clothes for the baby. Even the gruff handyman, who barely spoke to anyone, fixed the window latch so the draft would stay out. It was as if the whole building, starved of good news, had remembered what it meant to care for one another. For Jamie and Mira, things were still hard, food was never quite enough, and their mother's absence grew heavier with every sunrise. Mira tried not to cry in front of Jamie, but some nights she couldn't help it. Jamie, for his part, curled up next to his sister, whispering that maybe their mother was off helping someone else, the way they had helped Anna. One morning, as Mira was playing with Hope's tiny fingers, there was a knock at the door. Anna tensed, but Mrs. Tilly bustled over and opened it before anyone else could move. On the threshold stood a tall, well-dressed woman and a man in a gray suit. The woman's eyes swept the cramped room, taking in Anna, the baby, and the children, her gaze softening with each detail. "I'm Mrs. Bennett, director of the Camden Family Relief Society," she said gently. "We heard about what happened here, the children who gave their last bread to a stranger in need." She looked at Mira and Jamie, who squirmed under her kind eyes. Mrs. Bennett smiled and knelt down to their level. "You two did something very special. Even when you had almost nothing, you gave what you had. That's the sort of thing the world needs more of." The man in the gray suit stepped forward, carrying a large envelope. "The community wants to help you now, the way you helped Anna. Thanks to Mrs. Tilly's letter, we've raised enough money for your rent for the next year. There's food vouchers, warm clothes, and a place at the local school for both of you. And," he paused, glancing at Anna, "support for mothers in difficult times too." Anna burst into tears, clutching her baby, while Jamie gaped and Mira felt the world tilt in a new, dizzying way. Mrs. Tilly patted their backs, pretending not to cry herself. The relief workers brought in bags of food, blankets, and books. As neighbors crowded the hall with shy smiles and congratulations, Mira realized their kindness had made ripples they could never have imagined. Their tiny act of sharing a last crust of bread had changed not just their lives, but the lives of everyone around them. A week later, their mother returned. She was happy for her children's act of kindness and vowed never to leave them this long again. As the children walked to school, hand in hand, their bellies full and their hearts light, Mira glanced back at the old apartment building. Sunlight glimmered on the clean windows, and from an open window, Anna waved with baby Hope in her arms. Sometimes, Mira thought, when you give away your last crumb, the world gives you back a feast. And sometimes, the quietest acts of kindness are the ones that remake everything. Be part of our community and share in these meaningful stories. Just hit like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can start your day with inspiring lessons and heartfelt moments.